Okay, okay, this is a video on Caledonians, and so certainly no one asked for this, but what can you say? But this particular one that I'm looking at here is Chlorophaea, and it is quite short, but let's see, those are millimeters, and so quite small. But anyway, you can see that there's these cup-like structures that grow out of this other kind of scaly mass down here. So these are generally called squamules, and this is a podia, or podia. I'm going to say podia. But and this particular species, Chlorophaea, is quite widespread throughout the United States, surprisingly. Though, but anyway, this came from the mountains of Colorado, and it in many ways, although it took me a while to figure out what it was, it's quite adorable. So not all Cladonias have these wine glasses, but most do. Or they have some sort of structure that sticks out. It's hollow, as far as I can read. Never found one not. But the very end, if you look at the cups, you see there's some brown. Let's see. It's going to focus on. See, there's little brown spots there. Often enough for many species that can be brown, that can be red. There are some species called British soldiers. And sometimes there's cups growing out of cups, sort of arrangement. But they all have some, well, you can't really say that. That they all kind of sort of look the same, some sort of structure, a podia growing out of a mass of squamules. As I have found at least two that do not have podias. But they definitely have the squamules, and the squamules make it look like something else, or a couple of other things. So there you go. But generally speaking, it has an upper and lower surface, which makes me think it's, I have to look a little bit closer, but tends to make me think it's a foliose rather than a fruticose. But it definitely has some fruticose aspects. But I've never really had to take a Cladonia through a floral through a key, because it's such an obvious lichen. But there are some that do not have. One of the ones that does not have a podia. If you flip over the squamules, you'll see that it has some golden patterns or stripes on the bottom, and that was purely by luck that I saw this. This is not one of those species, but let me look. Here's another one. This is a Florida one, and this is semi-common throughout the eastern side of the United States. So this is subradiata, and you'll notice that the podias have squamules that kind of crawl up the podia. But you can see it's quite different. The squamules are a little bit different. This is the Cladonia right there, and some mosses. So there's quite a diversity, but it's like seeing a bunch of dogs. They have certain things in common, but you can pretty much tell they're a dog. Maybe not a Chihuahua, but so this is, and you can see that there's no cups here, and on this species it just kind of stops. It doesn't produce the what I interpret as the apothecia, the spore-producing body. Will often come off the very top, and that's red and, as I said, various. colors and so forth. So the red is seen as perhaps something that a fly can land on, and that spreads the spores around. So, but anyway, so where they grow, let's see if we can orientate this. They can grow on soil, they can grow on wood, on rocks. I've seen a lot of this particular species on rocks. What else? I've seen a lot of them growing on wood. It's very well decomposed wood. I've seen them growing on the base of pines. One species in Florida tends to want to do that. So there's, I'm going to say, fairly moist habitats in Florida. I've seen them, well, in moist habitats. There's actually in sinkholes. Well, if you want to get into a sinkhole, it just seems to me, a pit that it's hard to get out of. But some more than others, especially since they're muddy down there. But anyway, so like I said, this is one that's pretty straightforward. Getting at the species is a species is another story. Doing a quick look here. So about 106 species in North America. And so they do have a wide variety of things. Some of them look like little hands. But they all have well, again, most of them have some sort of fruiting body, some padilla, and little things come off that. And then the squamules and so forth. So I think the only thing you'd really mix it up with would be like a Cladonia, and there's a few other ones. If you're hanging around in sphagnum bogs, there's a couple that kind of look like this, but they don't have squamules, is my understanding, not in a robust way. Cladonias are highly branched, and they do have apotheses at the very ends. But it's not as, you'll never see a wine glass. The Cladonias look more like little shrubs or puffballs. Cladonias, not so much. So, but anyway, there we go. Like I said, one of my favorite lichens, but much like some varieties of plants, sometimes it's easy to get to the genus just by looking. But getting actually down to the species can be quite challenging, especially when it comes to like grasses and things like that. So, and then in the lichens, because they're not a distinct species, they're a symbiotic organism, you end up with things that are kind of like mixes, or slight difference in ecological niches will produce quite different forms. So it's like I said, it's a fun group of lichens, to my mind.